It's no secret that there's been a bit of a backlash against the Star Wars sequel trilogy, and while that's a conversation and a video series in and of itself, this isn't the first time Star Wars fans have had a negative reaction to new material taking place a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Before there was a sequel trilogy for people to complain about, the Star Wars prequel trilogy was the go-to for the unwaveringly impossible to please segment of the Star Wars fanbase. To understand why fans had such a problem with the prequels, and now the sequels, it's important to understand what Star Wars meant to fans before there was anything other than the original trilogy. The original Star Wars trilogy wasn't just a bunch of movies to the hardcore fans, it was a way of life. It spawned books, action figures, comics, and video games. People who grew up on the original trilogy became the kinds of fans who dressed up in costume and went to Star Wars conventions. All this from a series of drama movies in a science fiction setting. One thing fans of this time had always heard was that the trilogy that we got was only supposed to be the middle third of a 9-episode story, the remainder of which was apparently already planned out by George Lucas. Fans often speculated as to the details of what happened before the original film began and what may come after Return of the Jedi ended, but as time went on and George Lucas seemed more and more happy to have moved on with his life and left the demands of making Star Wars movies behind him, most fans never expected either prequels nor sequels to ever become a reality. That all changed in the late 90s, when Lucasfilm announced that the prequel trilogy was in production and would indeed be coming to a theater near you, beginning with the release of Star Wars Episode I: The Phantom Menace in 1999. Never in my life have I seen a more highly anticipated Star Wars movie, except possibly Episode 7. But after the unwashed masses who had lined up to see it on release day had seen the credits roll, many of them walked out with a sense of emptiness, as if they had just had their childhood physically ripped out of them. Even though the prequel trilogy continued on through to completion, making gazillions of dollars in the process, as Star Wars movies do, some people just weren't able to let go of their disappointment and, frankly, weren't very fair to the very, very good things about the prequel trilogy. Nobody's saying there wasn't dumb stuff in these movies, because there was, but was it really as bad as all that, or were people making too much out of it? Personally, I love the prequels, but I think I understand where some of the animus toward them comes from, and I think it all starts with the fact that, objectively speaking, The Phantom Menace didn't get the series off to a great start. If you ever listen to the people who hate the prequel trilogy, you realize that most of their complaints only apply to Episode 1. Though some of those complaints do bleed a bit into Episodes 2 and 3, most of the issues people say they have with the prequels boil down to the following. They found Jar Jar Binks to be an intensely annoying character who contributed nothing to the overall story. He was an annoying distraction, made it hard to take the rest of the story seriously, and appeared to be shoehorned in simply to appeal to children and sell toys. They thought the acting was terrible, though the people who say this usually fail to name anyone who was truly awful other than Jake Lloyd, who, to be fair, was 9 years old at the time Episode 1 was released. They thought that there was far too much of a focus on the politics of the Galactic Senate, trade disputes, and talking, and not enough on the action and adventure they expected from a Star Wars movie. They didn't like how the Force, which had previously been presented as a mystical form of energy that those with the power to do so could channel into what was effectively a form of magic, became scientifically measurable through the introduction of midichlorians. They thought that the pod race was a lame story mechanism, ate up too much time in the movie, and looked like it was just there to show off what Lucasfilm could do with CGI. They were bothered that certain elements from the original trilogy, namely Obi-Wan saying Anakin was already a great pilot when he met him, and Leia saying that she had vague memories of her real mother, were contradicted by events in the prequels. While these are all valid complaints, and I don't personally disagree with some of them, they really didn't have much of a bearing on, or even a presence in, Episodes 2 and 3. Jar Jar's role was greatly reduced from here on out, though his stupidity did become important later on, when it was taken advantage of to grant Palpatine emergency war powers. And the midichlorians were only mentioned again in the Opera House scene in Episode 3, when it was implied that Darth Plagueis used the Force to create Anakin. It's also not like the movie was a total bust. It introduced Darth Maul, one of the coolest villains ever in Star Wars, and one who would go on to play a critical role in both the Clone Wars and Rebels TV shows. It showed us the first glimmers of how Emperor Palpatine and Darth Vader got where they were when we first met them in the original trilogy. It establishes the beginning of the relationship Obi-Wan and Anakin would share for their entire lives. It established the Jedi as an antiquated and lazy body who underestimated their own weaknesses, which the Sith would later use to destroy them. All that being said, fans felt the way they felt, and that's their prerogative. So fine, Episode 1 may not have been the greatest movie in history. Fair enough. But why did that anger Star Wars fans to the point that they shunned the entire trilogy? Was it really because Lucasfilm had done that bad a job? I don't think so. And in the next video, we'll look at some of the major reasons the Phantom Menace and the movies that followed never had a hope of pleasing the die-hard fans. For now though, thanks for watching this video. Please leave your thoughts in the comments section below and whether you liked the Phantom Menace or thought it deserved the negative reaction it got. If you'd like to support the Star Wars Wavelength channel, please click subscribe to be notified whenever new videos are posted. Thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you. Always.